Hello everyone, replay team. Thank you so much for bear with me. And we are going live in 10 minutes. Just the moment for me to check the technology and to mute myself also at some point. And I will be back in 7 minutes, let's say. Thank you for your patience. We are going to be live in a few seconds. Hello, already, Margaret. And I just have to be mindful to find a way to mute my tablet assistant. So bear with me because I am new in the tech. I wonder how could I make this happening, but it is me trying new ways to be efficient. Anyway, this is okay because I am going to find a plan B. And now is the time to welcome everyone and to dance with what's happening. Going now to mute the music and remove this beautiful picture. Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. And technology. Okay. Oops. Okay. Camera on. Well done. And now we are welcoming Mr. Bez.
Hello,
Thank you,
hello.
sir. Thank you, sir. And before I enter into this amazing session, let me welcome these amazing people watching live on LinkedIn. Hi, Margaret. And look at the love that she sends to you. Yes, you have an amazing knowledge based room because it's not only you, it's also others. You make others shine. And look at this beautiful smiley just at your left. That's amazing. And dancing with the amazing room. So I'm just rechecking if I am live on YouTube. Yes. And on LinkedIn. Yes. And so we are now entering to this session. Always feel free in the comments in YouTube and LinkedIn to comment and to ask any question. I'm going to highlight you along the way. And by the way, you were having the blessing to see in the background the screenshot of Bez room. And so in this session, Oli Presents room that will last 60 minutes. Let me know if you are able to extend it, but normally it's 60 minutes will be okay. And at the end, there is two parts. The first part will be here, and the second part will be on your Go Brunch room. I'm going to
Okay.
introduce your space in your Go Brunch room. So at some point, also, I will invite the audience to go also in your Go Brunch room so that we can have a direct chat. From now, Mr. Bez, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to spotlight you. Uh, Let me first ask you first question. How are you feeling today, my friend?
I'm feeling good. Thank you for the invite. It's an honor and a pleasure to be invited by the great Ollie, who like you're right, you're the human igniter, and you're quite the positive person that I enjoy seeing on many days, right? So thank you.
Hmm.
Mm.
Thank you so much. And so, if you are feeling well, we can continue by introducing you. Who is behind this amazing person that is called Bez Rengifo? I am a bit like not Ben, but
Right.
Bez Rengifo. Who is behind this amazing name?
Well, All right, so give me a little bit about how much time I have because I want to be respectful of the time.
You
But
you have you have 10 minutes, and I'm going to be off camera for a few seconds, but I'm going to be back. But you have
okay,
10 minutes to
10
present
minutes. Okay.
yourself, your story, your journey.
All right. Well, I was born to two wonderful parents. I have a mom who's Puerto Rican. She's 87, and in April she'll be completing 88 great years. And so I'm excited for her. My dad was Peruvian, and he passed away in 2019. He was almost 92 years old. He was from the Amazon jungle, and he would tell me stories that I was hard to believe. He was a great man, and I miss him dearly. But our household was one that you sort of have to go beyond me and look at where my parents came from. My dad came from humble beginnings and made it here to United States, got naturalized, met my mom in Miami, Florida, and eventually got married to her. And my mom's side actually are missionaries. So I always wondered why were we always volunteering and doing things in the community. But that was my life, of service to others. If there was something to be done, you could find our family pitching in and helping out the less fortunate. And granted, sometimes, even when we're like, well, why are we helping them? Well, someone should help us. But that was just the household that I came from, and we were blessed in many ways beyond measure. So I saw wonderful things. So I was born, grew up in Florida, moved to, I think when I was 3 or 4 years old. I really couldn't remember, but I'm trying to put this in perspective, time wise. Then moved to North Carolina, and that's where I learned to speak English. From there, we lived there about 4 years. My mom was an educator there; she's a teacher. And my dad at that time switched careers to become a nurse, and so he went to school. I would remember seeing studying, and then he became a nurse, right? And it was interesting back in the day. I would have to People say, "What does your dad do?" I would say he's a male nurse. I had to qualify that um, and say he was a male nurse, right? Because there was a gender associated with certain professions, right? So that was interesting. From there, we moved to after living there, we moved to Alabama. No, actually, no, Tennessee, and we lived there only 1 year. And I lived among what I call mountain people. They have a different dialect, and I learned that dialect. I mean, spoke English for the most part, but they have what they call mountain talk, and it was really interesting. We only lived there 1 year, but it was very rural, and it was very interesting. And I enjoy, as a kid, you enjoy stuff, very outdoorsy. From there, we moved to Alabama, and in Alabama, we lived there for another 4 years. My mom was a teacher at an elementary school there in Montgomery, Alabama. And again, we lived out, commuted in from the country. My parents just loved to live in the country, and I learned to swim in rivers. You know, I learned in creeks and in lakes. Over in the South they call them cricks. Even though it's a creek. um, I learned to eat boiled peanuts in Alabama, and then from there we had great times. It was interesting from a culture perspective, observing certain things that are very interesting. From Alabama, we moved to actually we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we lived there for about a year. My mom again taught at a school over there, and I learned to love the desert. It was one of those things where the Albuquerque weather was very mild, beautiful. The desert was lovely, um, and it was just beautiful. And also in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's also known as the hot air balloon capital of the world. So I can't remember the exact time. It might be autumn or spring where the sky is full of hot air balloons, and it's a huge festival known worldwide, and people come there. So yeah, that we lived there a year, had tons of fun. I really was sad to leave there. And from there we moved to Georgia, and I think by that time I was in 8th grade. So I we were in 8th grade when we moved to Georgia, and we lived there until yeah. So I went to school there. My mom taught at a school, uh, uh, a couple schools during that time. Really had a great time in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And but right before my junior year in high school, my mom got a job in California, and so it was so quick. She had to go ahead of us, and then at that time we eventually left in the middle of the year, like after in the Christmas holiday, we moved, and my brother, myself, and my dad and my mom came back to help us move, and we moved to California. It was a little farming community called Calexico, right there on the border of Mexicali. And my mom taught at a mission school there, and it was very fascinating just to observe, just to live in a farming community. We ended up going to another school, going away to a school in Escondido, California, to in the San Pasqual area. But anyways, I grew up most of my years in California. Um, Went to university there, started my career there in recruiting and HR, and lived there for many, many years, got married, had 3 kids, and then, when my dad passed away a couple years after that, I decided to move here to the Atlanta, Georgia area, because my mom moved back in the mid-90s to Atlanta. So I decided to move back, and be near my mom. So my wife and I, my kids were grown, so we were able to move back and be near my mom, and that's where I'm at today. I am a headhunter. I'm a recruiter. I've done HR. I've worked in corporate America. I've have my own company. This is actually my second time. Had one in my mid to late 20s, same company, and I reactivated back in 2016, 2017, and doing headhunting. And I've also recently launched a career coaching program. So it's like a second stream of income to my headhunting business. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm having a really great time. Doing some really interesting things. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I could go deeper, but I think I've taken up the 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So first, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your family adventures, and also my condolences for your father. And hi also to the audience, Margaret, Juicy, Rez. So there is Bez and there is Rez. And there is Nicole also. And Nicole is also congratulating you. And that she said that it's tough to be an entrepreneur. And what I hear from you, because I try to focus and to not disperse my thoughts, what I hear from you is that you were discovering a lot of US states. You were living in multiple US states, and especially in rural mode. So it seems that you are also having your feet really grounded on earth, and that you, yeah, it's important nowadays. There are people that are only living in the cities and that really don't know what it means to really live from earth, the earth side. So
Well, yeah, my
yeah.
my parents really growing up as a kid, they insisted we live in rural areas, and
Mm,
even if the job was in town. But when I got married and had kids, I was more metropolitan. And so when I moved back to Georgia, even though, I tell people I'm in Atlanta, I'm really about 2 hours north of my mom, and she's it is rural where I live. I'm wearing a flannel shirt because it's cold, right? And Juicy said, "What's my favorite state?" I gotta say that I love them all for many many reasons, but because I lived so many years in California, I fell in love with the culture, the music, the food, and more specifically, even though I'm half Puerto Rican and half Peruvian, I was around a lot of the Mexican culture. So this day when I speak Spanish, I speak with like how a Mexican would speak Spanish, right? And so my Puerto Rican friends are like, like they look at me like, "What do you say?" But, I just mess around with them but yeah, I love the food, love the culture, love the I have a vast network there. But I say every state is like a different country. It brings something special, unique, and, yeah, it is so, uh, yeah, but California is near and dear because I've lived for over 30 years there, and it's hard not to love something that much when you have roots there, right? And roots are important, but you know what, it's okay to get up and go, because at the end of the day, we all have our reasons why we live places. And I think sometimes you get in a place in your life where family is important, and especially when you have older parents, and you realize that you may need to slow down so you can spend some time with them. So that's where I'm at in my life.
Well, kudos for you also for having this decision to go more near your mom, because at some point our parents are aging. My dad is going to be 76. It will be an interesting time this year, also in terms of numbers, because I realized in 2002 I was 26 and he was 52. And
Mm.
now he will be, especially after June. After June of this year, he will be 76. He's born on March, and I will be 49. And it's like a backflip because he was born in 49, and I will be 49 years old. And I was born in 76. And guess what? I'm born in, he will be 76 years old. So that's a really a funny aspect. But kudos for you and for going to enjoy your mom before she's going to a cruise to join God again. Because life is not granted. I was really last year was really tough, and but it's really important to take care about our parents.
Yeah.
And also, thank you again for Juicy for your question. Feel free to ask any question to Bez. I will pop them out. And also, hi Lisa, happy Friday. And also, Trinidad. I think it's that she was mentioning Trini. I don't know. And Juicy is telling Oli, I was born in 76 too. Ah, that's great. And it's too amazing to realize that in less than 18 months, I will turn a half century. Time flies. So, and now I would like to also go more in about your career aspects. What led you to choose career the career path that you have right now?
That was an interesting journey. When you go through university, you know, you you're I just felt all my friends had their life planned out for the or they knew what they were gonna do. I went to a school that was a feeder school to a medical school, but they also had a school of business. And so a lot of my friends were pre-dent, pre-med, pre something, right? And it was interesting because I would have conversations like in the summer times. I would work and do maintenance in the dormitory, and I had another Peruvian friend of mine that he's really smart. Was a pre med. His dad was a doctor, right? And so he was predestined to be a doctor because his parents told him so, right? So he and we had interesting conversations cleaning the dormitories in the summertime to make some extra money. And we painted, cleaned, we prepared it for the next school year. And he eventually did not become a doctor. He went a different career path and enjoyed it very much. So I was in my senior year and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was very frustrating. And I finally took a human resources class, and back then they called it personnel. It wasn't even called HR back then, and the light bulb hit. But I am an extrovert. I was looking at my school loans, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of these opportunities out there that were management trainees making $24,000, and I'm like, what am I going to do with $24,000? It's not a lot you can do. So I I I went to the school of business secretary during my final moments there, and I said, "Hey, you got any leads for me?" And she goes, "Yeah, an alumni called, and here's a lead. They're looking for a recruiter." So I went through the interview process. Eventually, I got hired, and my mom said, "So, how much are they gonna pay you?" And I said, "Well, it's really full commission." But they do give me a $5 an hour job, but that's not why I'm there. I'm there because of the full commission. And she was not very, very happy. She was very upset, actually. And she had some choice words. And I was like, okay, that's all right. I'm going to prove you wrong, mom. My dad was more relaxed. He was, see, my mom's the teacher. She needed, it was something needed to be there steady. My dad was very calm, but he had taken jobs like that before. And so he knew what I was about to embark on. So I went and worked for an employment agency, and my first year I barely survived. I was not proving my mom wrong. She was on the winning side of that. But then I decided at the end of the year I was thinking, okay, maybe this is really hard. The How I'm making money is there's got to be easier ways. This is really really hard because I would work long hours. And so I decided to interview the most successful people, and I learned really important what was the secret sauce. And the secret sauce was they focused on one industry, and that's it. And so I did that, and that changed my fortunes immediately. I went into work in the telecom field,
Ollie, is your interview over already?
and so I heard something. Was that me or you?
No, sorry, it's me. You can continue. I am so sorry. I was having
You know,
multiple tabs and so sorry.
I I know this happens to me sometimes. So, anyways, I did that, and then I worked. Eventually, became went to President's Circle of Winners. I think I was number 4 nationwide among 32, 34 offices, and I worked at that company almost 5 years. I became a supervisor. Then my boss, who trained me, she decided to go start her own company, and I went through an interview process, and I eventually beat out people who were actually more experienced than me, like people that trained me, and I felt really like I wasn't deserving, but I wasn't going to say no to the opportunities. So I became the agency manager, and from there, I went to work for a software company for probably 10 months. And I then realized that, I can do this on my own. So I went ahead and went on my own and started my own company. And I worked up until, things were really, really good in the mid to late 90s up until 2000. And then we went into a recession. And right after that, in 2001, we had the 9/11 incident where the um a few airplanes crashed into the Twin Towers, also the Pentagon, and then another plane was downed in Pennsylvania field by the passengers. So it was a very interesting time for United States. It that didn't help the situation with the recession, but what ended up happening, I was almost ready to dig a ditch, Ollie. I was like, I mean, I had 3 kids. I had to make some money, and the business was very slow. So I got an opportunity to be on the TSA project where they were in the process of federalizing. They wanted to federalize the airports, and it it even didn't start as the TSA, started under the Department of Transportation. Eventually became the TSA while we were on the project, but I was one of the original people. They hired 50 in LA, 50 in Chicago, 50 in Atlanta, and we were really failing in the first month, but a few of us got together. We put a proposal together. I authored it, and we sent it up the chain of command to the prime contractor to present to the federal government, and they awarded us another 12, $13 million, and we were able to branch out, and that allowed us to hire 2,000 people so we could go hire 45,000 people. So that was a one of my most significant projects, because it was the impossible. We did we took the impossible and made it possible. And it stretches you to your limits, because we hired 45,000 people in 7 months, and we really didn't have a clear roadmap to begin with, and then we did it. And I can tell you that we went from high tech to low tech, because that's what we needed to do. We adjusted the strategy, and we grew our capability and capacity by hiring another 2,000 people, because 150 people is not going to fill 45,000 positions. We had to scale it. So that happened. From there, after that, there was a lot of relationships I made on that project. One of the most valuable things that came out of that project was not that, and I'll share this with you, Ollie. I was making less on that project than I was when I first went out on my own as a contract recruiter. And but I was happy because I was going to dig a ditch for less money, right? So I it was one of those things that the value of that project was the relationships I built, and it served me well. Like, I went to work for a company after that. I did some consulting, went to work for a company that actually the VP of HR was on the project with me, and she was actually like my squad leader. And so that, I mean, from that came multiple opportunities. Went to work for a security company that was trying to start up. That didn't work out. That's okay. Eventually went to work for a company that had a contract with a post-production company in Hollywood, and they were buying a lot of some of the Grammy award-winning post-production companies and putting it under a shell. And so I was hired to build their recruitment department, and from scratch. And we did that, and we didn't just have operations in the U.S. We had operations in the U.K. and around the world. So it was that was a pretty interesting project. Um, then went to work. I eventually went to work for two healthcare companies. I had done a lot of technical recruiting most of my career at that point, and then I went to work at a large healthcare company in Southern California that at the time was needing to do a they had just decided not they were building an electronic medical record with a large company, and they decided to throw away after spending $500 million. And they said, okay, we're going to spend over $1 billion a year for 5 years. So it was a $5 billion plus project for a new system, and they used a system called Epic. And from there, I worked at that company for another 5 years. And then from there, I went to work for another healthcare organization in my backyard. And I worked there in the first healthcare company. I was a lead technical recruiter, so I led projects. In the second one, they hired me to start a new HR department within the large healthcare system. So they had a line of business that wanted to take HR out of HR, and that was an interesting thing. Um, after that, that's when I started my own thing. I worked there 6.5 years. As time had come, and they said, "Time to go, Bez." What? So there was one of those things. But yeah, and now I'm here doing my own thing. I have my own executive search firm, and I do have also have started some career coaching because I've been giving some type of career advice for many, many years. so, so that's it. So there's a question here, right? Okay.
Yes.
So Juicy says, I have a controversial question. You said that you left the software company because you realized that you could do that on your own. Was there any reasons that triggered that decision? Yes, that's not a controversial question. I think it's we need to reflect and ask questions all the time. I'm a big believer that you should be like a 5-year-old and ask why, how come, and you should really dig deep internally and answer those questions. So I'm a big believer of that. So I was the situation was Juicy was it was a software company, and I was doing recruiting for them. And I learned a lot from the guy. In fact, probably one of the things I learned a lot from that company was contracts. Like he was really into legal contracts, and as even though I was a recruiter, he taught me a lot about contracts. And I once in a while still reach out to him, but he was going through a period where I just felt that if I don't have equity stake in the organization and I've got your problems, then I'd rather go start my own company and have my own problems and control my destiny a little bit better. So I did that. I believed in myself and I moved forward. So I think that's a great question. I think we should always be asking ourselves questions. Yep. So great question. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much indeed. Feel free to continue to ask questions. In, let's say, 10 minutes, we are switching to Go Brunch so that you are able also to showcase your amazing room and to talk
Sure.
about your mission that you started since the 1st of January. But from now, I'm going to salute Margaret. Happy Friday, everyone. And I wonder if we would like, if you would like to also talk about the culture aspect in a little while, like 5 or 6 minutes, or the language,
Yeah.
because you are a Latino, and I have a surprise for you at the end in the Go Brunch room. And I won't, because I'm not good at geography, so I don't know about US. Is where you are living near the Mexico or other Latina bubbles countries?
Well, Georgia is not near the Mexican border. Well, it's not on the Mexican border. I mean, it's Texas is on the Mexican border. California is on the Mexican border. But Georgia is not. Now, Georgia is near Florida, and in Florida, you have a lot of people from South America and other countries come. So you have a high concentration of Latinos there, right? Because but from, I would say Central America to Mexico, you usually, it's a whole different demographic. Um, so the culture here in Georgia, just to let you know, when I left in 1986, and I was a teenager, there was not a lot of Latinos. There was not. I only remember there being one Latino-based restaurant, and it was a Mexican restaurant. And there's and here in Georgia right now, there is about 10-11% today Latinos, and the um the the breakdown here is actually still predominantly Mexican, 49% Mexican here in Georgia. There and it used to be 10%, or the rest was other, right? Because it was so, but right now, the Puerto Ricans are comprise of 10%, but there's a lot of hyper growth right now among Venezuelans, Hondurans, and other Central American countries that there's some hyper growth there. But right now, Mexicans, 49, 50%, and Puerto Ricans at about 10%. Now, here's the thing: Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, and sometimes people get confused thinking that they're not. So, but they are. So, yes.
Yeah, amazing. Because in fact, I'm also taking some time to showcase my passion about language. Like me
Mhm.
llamo Oli, soy mucho feliz de encontrarte ti. Spanish will be my fifth language this year. I'm going to learn Spanish. I
Mm.
already speak French as a native language, Dutch, English, Italian. So it helps because Spanish and Italian are Latin based, so it's
Yes.
really helping. And also, today is a special day because today is the International World Day of the Mother Language. And I would like to give some minutes also about your feedback about what's happening in US and what is the place of the other languages where in US the main language is English, but then there is also huge communities of Spanish, of Mandarin, of Asian, other like Portuguese or other. What are your thoughts about this particular aspect of oh, you have to speak English, and what are your thoughts?
Uh, I I think while you should learn the language where you live, I don't think it's a must. I think good to see you, Luz, from the Netherlands. She's become a great friend of you and me, Ollie. I think the people are there's some people that gonna gravitate to speaking English well, and I believe some are gonna stay and not master English, and that's couldn't be to your own detriment. But then I know business owners that don't even speak the language that are quite well speaking their language, right? In living in California for so many years. So I think to your answer, two things can be true, right? Uh, you know, so you can speak English and make it here in the United States, and you can speak your native language and still do quite well. The United States is a melting pot, but we have a very and a, a a history that is very complex and confusing, right? Because we're not, while we may be the shining light for many countries, we have also had our issues too. We're not perfect, right? And I don't think any humans is perfect. So therefore, countries can't be perfect, right? But like when I lived in California, there was so many languages spoken. You're right, Mandarin, Chinese, Tagalog. I mean, I've so many different languages, and a little bit different is like when you go to federal organizations or they have documentation in California, they produce them in many languages, not just Spanish. So I think language is important. I think it is the reason why you want to stay tied down to or have a connection with your native language is because when you don't, you lose your culture. And my mom noticed that when we were 10 years old, because we were trying to fit in and assimilate to the American culture, and your friends don't speak Spanish, like depending where you live. And so now you're trying to put your language on the background, and you may even be ashamed of your language because it's different. Nobody understands it. But my mom and dad sent my brother and I to Puerto Rico when we were around 10 years old because they felt we were losing the language. And to this day, and I was, to this day, I actually have an accent now when I speak Spanish. It doesn't sound like, it sounds like you know, I'm a gringo, right? So that's, my wife always makes fun of me because she's from Guatemala, and so she speaks it very, very good. And I used to speak it very, very good, but so yeah, that's a really good question. I just think it's complicated. I have various thoughts. I think we should honor our culture, and I think that when you honor your culture, you should stay grounded in all aspects of your culture because that's what makes you beautiful. That's what makes America the beautiful place that it is that you meld different cultures that come together, and it can be tough, because when as you progress, the different ethnicities that have lived here, they forget that they were persecuted at one point, that they have a derogatory name attached to where they came from. We all do, right? But at the end of the day, we are one humanity, and we need to do better, and work to make this world a better place, make it as peaceful as possible. Ollie, you resonate with me of, and how you look at the world, and I just think that there's many opportunities to do that, and it starts in our own backyard.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm in Belgium. I have officially to speak French and Dutch in my country. The third official language is also German. I recall it's not anymore the case when there is a king, because we have a king in Belgium. But in the 80s, 90s, he was speaking in French because it was in the channel French. But in the Dutch channel, he was speaking Dutch. And at the end, the king was Baudouin or Albert. He was always dropping the last sentences in German, but we didn't have to learn German at school. So if I could have going back to the past, I would have probably learned more German, not especially for the language, but also to connect more with my grandfather. And I share something personal, just a few moments, because my grandfather was deported during World War II. And at some point, when I was visiting him and my grandmother, he was dropping me some German words. And I was thinking, oh, where does this word came from? But as a child and adolescent, I never, he passed away 30 years and few weeks ago. And I never had the maturity as a child or adolescent to ask the questions. So asking questions, it's so important. We should foster that at school, critical thinking, and also to honor the wholeness as a one human species, but with diversity. Because um, something I would like also to share, because it's really something that is dearing to my heart. I'm in Belgium, so I just see that from my Belgian state, what's happening in US. And I don't know in what extent you are living that yourself, or the people that are surrounding you. But I remind myself of these experiments that a teacher at school made in the 60s. It's called the third wave experiment. And in few days, he was able to form a group of, from a classroom of 20, 30 people, to form a group of 100 or 200 people to apply his role play during these few days. And feel free also to check on YouTube the third wave experiment. There are also, it's a documentary that is 1 hour long, I think. And there are also lots of testimonies from every student, from the professor himself. And at reason, he was banned to teach again. And there is no, I don't want to enter into the debate that should have in his should have him done this or that. But at least he was doing that in the 60s. And if we are not learning from history, from what happened, then the history will repeat. So I'm really honoring every culture in this planet. I'm feeling more Earthian. And I would like also to let you give your thoughts about that before I move on.
About the about the yeah, I mean, I want to just say thank you for sharing that personal thing. With which is, I also see Juicy here saying that her grandfather was deported. So I'm holding these red cards. Okay, I'm gonna explain what these are. Um, and at the end of the day, we all as humans like to be treated with respect and dignity and kindness. We also want to be accepted, right? And what I'm noticing now that it is when it used to be politically incorrect to act a certain way, that in today's society, it is okay to be nasty, mean, disrespectful, and unempathetic. Like not having empathy for people. And I grew up in a very religious household, and so when we asked the question, "Are you my brother's keeper?" I really never understood that until now. And I'm sad to say that, I've heard about it, but now I understand it. Even though I was born here in the United States, and my mom was an American citizen from the day she was born, and my dad was naturalized and went through the process, that I understand the plight of all immigrants in a certain way, because a lot of people around me, or people that I've been blessed to know, have come from other countries and immigrated here. With that being said, that has caused me to, because I'm a volunteer. Number one, I'm a volunteer to help people, but that has led me to a path that where I'm being drawn into policy discussions, right? And policy discussions lead you to the political realm. And as uncomfortable as that may be for me, it is a place where I feel my voice is needed, specifically in standing up for the Latino people and the ones that are vulnerable to some of the societal attacks on and I'm empathetic. I don't care whether it's Latino or something else. I just happen that it is sort of popular right now to single out the Latinos here in the United States. So this card right here is to give people it's one side is Spanish, one side is English, is to explain the rights you have. And here in the United States, you have rights even if you are not an American citizen. So people don't understand their rights. And knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, because you can take action on that knowledge. So I'll give you an example. I live here in Atlanta. I went to on February the 5th, I'm looking at my calendar. I went down to the Capitol. It was a Wednesday. They were celebrating Latino Capital Day, and it was a celebration. But I didn't just take it as a celebration. I went to make public comments on an anti-immigration bill that same day. And I got up and I said something. I said it just feels like it's a pylon. There's already laws, and it just feels like it just it doesn't feel good. I told them. I go, and we're your neighbors. Um, I made the point that we feel like we're being made political piñatas for the benefit of somebody who's trying to make a point or get their name out there. I didn't really know what kind of impact that would have. I just thought, hey, I'm going to speak my mind, and I really don't care what anybody thinks, because I'm going to speak my truth in standing up for my people. So my mom the other day said, "Hey, you were quoted in the paper." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got these notifications." I go, "Mom, you have notifications?" And she sure did. She said, "Your name popped up." And so I looked. Sure enough, that was in Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and also some other periodical that quoted me and there was, I guess, a news reporter in that room and quoted me and said what I had said. And so I looked it up and but yeah, I mean, hey, I guess I'm in that part of my life that, you know, I'm maybe getting into some good trouble.
Well, it's really important because if you have a value, if you stand for values, then you at some point you are going to be in trouble because I don't pledge for people to be in trouble, but at some point I don't want people to be with apathy and to return their vest at any occasion. There was like an expression like, "Oh, he returned his vest," like he's brushing the hairs in the good sense. But at some
Mm.
point, it's good also if we have value, if we believe on something, and we are standing for others also, that we are taking a decision. And if it's not, if it causes pain, at least we did something. So from now on, I'm just going to share the your amazing offering, which is the Career Collective. This is the link of Luma, and it's an amazing offering that you are doing each day at 9 a.m. each day of the week at 9 a.m. EST. And in few minutes, in 1 minute, we are going already to your Go Brunch room. So now, and thank you again, Zakia, Margaret, Nick, Juicy, Jamie, everyone for joining. I posted the link to the Go Brunch, and now I'm going to uh, make the technological switch to share my screen so that you are on Bez room right now. And Juicy and Jamie are already there. I'm just checking in
And so
the
I'll head over there. So
yes, yes.
let me see. I'll
So
go over there.
we shall see. And I don't know if there will be an echo or not. So I will test if we have an echo on LinkedIn and YouTube, but normally it will be okay. I will check just a little bit before I
I want
talk.
to say I want to say one last thing before we leave because
Yes.
you've hit my heart.
Oh,
There's this saying is oh it's this thing let me find it because I was very moved by it. It's like it was like how to say where they they came for me but nobody was there. Let me see. Give me a second. Um it was a quote in regards to uh like how it is. I thought it was maybe Gandhi or something, but it wasn't. It was a saying about they came for an ethnicity or
yeah.
somebody.
In fact,
And
it was a quote from Martin Niemöller that I was just thinking a few minutes before. Like they came for the Jews, and I was not
yes,
standing. And it goes on, and at the end, and at the end, they came for me, and no one was there for standing for me. Yeah, this
absolutely.
yeah, this quote is so powerful, and I really love this quote. We need more critical thinking and to say enough. We you shall not pass at some point, because it's not about you, it's about everyone. Like what happened with the LGBTQ trans, what happened with the migrants, with the disabled persons, the autistic, and on and on and on. So if we don't stand for each of us, who is going to stand for us at the end? So that's my share.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you picked up on that because like, where did I see that quote? I love that. You and I were thinking on the same wavelength. So that is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Luz, the link normally would work because we are there. It's the same link of that you were there with Bez. So feel free to join. I placed it on Go Brunch, and you have the link also in there on the visual. So now I will try something. I will mute myself on Restream, and I will unmute my tab on Go Brunch, and I will see if it's working on LinkedIn and YouTube. So bear with me.
You might have to share. That sounded funny. Um, we the